Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
I would like to give a warm welcome to our main speaker tonight, Craig. Thank you.
My name is Craig. I'm an alcoholic. I'd like to thank Dawn for asking me to speak here this evening. I'm not from Los Angeles or the surrounding area. From a town called Glasgow in a country called Scotland. And if you don't know anything about it, it's kind of like if you imagine the movie Braveheart set in Detroit in the 1970s, then you have a pretty good picture of Glasgow. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. I may go into a long drunkalogue. That's my prerogative tonight. I may not. I always get a bit nervous actually when people say I'm not going to talk too much about drinking, because I think, well, why not? You know, the first three syllables of the name of the illness tells you a little bit about what it's about. It might be important, or else they'd have just taken it out. They'd have just called it ism. You know, it's not ism. It's alcoholism, and for me that was very important to know that. I took other substances when I was out there, never sober, and but my main thing was drinking alcohol. My main thing in life was drinking alcohol, getting it, throwing it down my neck, getting more of it, apologizing for doing it, getting more of it, swearing off it, taking a trip, not taking a trip, all that stuff. And I remember saying to someone in a bar when I was drinking, they were taking some kind of pill, and I said, I don't really like pills that much. I like to regulate my intake. Like I ever regulated my intake of anything, you know, but I like to know what's going down, you know, so I know when to stop. Right. Alcohol was, I first got drunk when I was 13 years old. I shared a bottle of wine, not over a meal or anything, with a school friend. We drank a bottle of wine which is called El Dorado, which I don't think is available in America. I don't think it's actually available anywhere now, but it was a South African wine that was fortified with white spirit. And it's not like going to give the Napa vineyards anything to worry about or anything like that. It's rocket fuel, and I drank half a bottle of it, and I guess I don't know. I'm sure maybe I drank all of it, or maybe I drank very little of it. But the truth was, I blacked out at age 13. I got into a fight with the local policeman. I lost. I woke up in a cell. Then I kind of blacked out again. It was all very vague. And anyway, the following morning I woke up in my parents' house on the couch with a horrible, terrible feeling of dread. I'd never felt such dread in my life about what had happened the night before. I'd never blacked out. I was 13. It's not something that happened to me a lot in preteen years. And that feeling of dread, that feeling of awful terror, I was to come to know that pretty well. That was part of my life for a long time. I was a bedwetter as a child, which I say from the podium. It's kind of important for me to say that because it's the truth. And also, I was very embarrassed about it when I came into AA, because when I was drunk, I used to wet the bed. And I was very embarrassed by that, because rightly so, because I didn't get sober till I was 29, and when you're 25 and you're wetting the bed, it's embarrassing. Especially if you lived the way I lived. Often I didn't wake up alone. And, although, has to be said, I think everyone I woke up with thought perhaps maybe they wet the bed. None of us. Wasn't there a lot of sober, classy ladies going, I want that one, so anyway, but I noticed after I got sober, and this was important, that I didn't wet the bed when I wasn't drinking alcohol. So it was a very physical indication right there, and I was terribly embarrassed by it. But, I stopped wetting the bed when I got sober. I'm, 8.5 years sober. I haven't wet the bed once since I was 29. I think that's a victory for which Scotland can be justly proud. Yeah, a lot of dry beds. But it was I'm laughing at it now, but actually what's interesting to me is that when I got sober in the first couple of weeks and months, it crippled me with embarrassment. I would have drunk alcohol rather than tell you that. It was so important to me that you not know that deep, horrible secret about me, that I wet the bed when I was drunk. I would kill myself with alcohol rather than tell you that. Now something happened, because I don't know I know a couple of people in this room. I used to wet the bed when I was drinking. It doesn't bother me. See what I'm saying? Something happened. The thing that I used to want to kill myself over went away. Because something happened in between getting sober and staying sober and being here tonight. A lot of stuff has happened. But it's a kind of indication for me. And I was thinking about it. I was thinking about when I used to drink. It was, and I don't think about it that often, I have to say. If you're new, that may seem strange. But I don't really think about the drinking that much. Maybe I should think about it a little more. It would help me be grateful for the way my life is now. I've noticed that when I am grateful, I don't try to cultivate gratitude so that I can be a happy camper for Jesus. The reason I try and not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just not my thing, but the reason I try to cultivate gratitude is because it feels more comfortable for me. I feel better, and when I feel better, when I feel more at peace or grateful, I think it's much less likely that I will drink alcohol, which of course will kill me. Probably very slowly and embarrassingly as well. I'll probably wet the bed a lot and then die. But I kind of, I don't recall recently ever wanting a drink, but occasionally it kind of haunts me. Recently I had some people staying at my house. In fact, there's people staying at my house right now. My sister and her husband and their kids are staying. He likes to have the occasional beer. And that's it. That's all he has, is the occasional beer. My brother-in-law drinks the occasional beer. I think that's weird. But, he has, I say I'm cool with it. He has a bottle of Heineken in the fridge. It's just like sitting there glowing, like... It's like kryptonite, just... and I think, maybe I should say something, and you know what, maybe I should. Why should I be embarrassed? But look, if I was like an Orthodox Jew, I wouldn't say, yeah, put the ham in the fridge, I don't care. It matters to me. It's my house. Take your booze outside. Nearly killed me. It's dangerous to me. It's dangerous to me. I think that if I get cocky about this stuff, I'm in big trouble. If I start saying, yeah, it's not about booze anymore, well, it could be about booze real quick. Alcoholism. Important. For me, anyway. I got to say it out loud. I was driven to... I got sober through a treatment center. I'm a retread. I got sober for 4 months and then started drinking again. And And then I got taken to a treatment center by a friend of mine who had gotten sober a couple of months previously. He drove me to a place just outside London, which is it's quite swanky, actually. It's quite a swanky kind of treatment center. I had no money, but for some reason they were short of people or something, I don't know, and they took me in. And I was very nervous and very scared, very afraid, very worried that I had joined some weird cult. I always thought Alcoholics Anonymous was like a cross between Weight Watchers and the Moonies. And it kind of is. And that's fine with me. I would in fact do that. And listen, if you're a Moonie, cool, I don't care. That's good, whatever works. Although in my experience, this is the only thing that does work. That's my experience and my opinion. But it happens to be my experience. I was driven to the treatment center by a friend of mine who was sober. He had been sober for maybe a year. Obviously, we hadn't seen much of each other in that time. And he said, "Don't worry, Craig, the war is over and you lost. But it's okay because like Germany and Japan lost the war and they're doing okay now too. So you'll be all right." I'm like, oh, okay. It kind of somehow made sense. It was a nice thing to say. And there was no German or Japanese people in the car, so everyone was cool. He drove me there, and I went in, and I spent a long time going through the first 5 steps with a lot of people who were alcoholic and some people who weren't alcoholic, who were in there for other problems, and they were very nice people, and I wasn't really that interested in them. I was very angry at them, actually. I was very angry at people for not being alcoholics and being in a treatment center, and I have no idea why to this day. I was especially angry at people if they had something wrong with their eating habits. I always thought that was kind of like a charlatan thing to have. I have no opinion on that anymore. I know what I am, I know where I need to go. I go to AA meetings because I'm an alcoholic. I also seem to have some kind of food problem as well. But anyway, I stayed there for a while, and we went through some stuff, and then I came out, and I was very raw, and I didn't think that I would be able to manage not going to pubs. My whole life I had gone to pubs. I lived in them, you know, different ale houses. I drank beer all the time. My whole social thing was, you know, you meet someone from Scotland. To this day, they'll say, "Let's go for a drink." If you bump into someone, they go in. A drink means let's go and get drunk together, and catch up, get arrested, and you know, pay the bed, and that's what it means for me. And so I didn't know how I was going to function. I didn't think I'd be able to live. I was very, very, very afraid. And the first meeting I went to, I met the man who's still my sponsor, who was speaking at that meeting. It was the first meeting I went to out of treatment. He was speaking at the meeting. It was a very swanky meeting in London. There was a lot of people who had got drunk on very expensive stuff and still had money and stuff. And he was speaking at the meeting, and he had an accent like mine. He spoke here like 3-4 weeks ago. And in fact, I've got his tape right here. And he lives in Toronto. I'm actually getting the red eye tonight and leaving here and going to visit him for next week, and we're going sailing together up in Toronto. And I'll have to give him this tape, and I'm sure he'll listen to it over and over and over again. And if you tell him that, Don, I'll deny it. But he was a great guy, you know. He talked like me. I believed him. He told me about his experiences. They didn't seem that different to mine, about things that had happened to him when he was drinking, and I had got into similar situations. And I even suspected that perhaps at some point we would broach the damp bedding situation. And look, I'm not going to talk for this guy, but he seemed to be on my wavelength, okay? I'll say no more than that. We talked about stuff. And I felt at ease. I trusted him instinctively. I trusted him. I felt that he was an alcoholic, and I could identify with him, and there was that bond between alcoholics who are trying to get sober and try and stay sober. and he was a great help to me. We talked about, you know, what it's like to be. He had gone to some dark places when he was drinking. I had gone to some places that I thought were really dark. I thought I was a really bad guy. I was really a very pathetic guy. I wasn't much in the way of a fighter or a getting out. I mean, I got arrested a couple of times, but for nothing very interesting or spectacular. And the worst time I can remember drinking actually was in Australia, when I was in a hotel room at 4 o'clock in the morning, and that awake at 4 o'clock. I woke up from something. I was awake. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. The bed was damp, and I was like, oh Jesus, and everything was horrible. And I turned the TV on, and it was Australian television is pretty bad. At 4 o'clock in the morning, it's apocalyptic, and that was bad enough. And then a commercial came on, and it really got to me. It was a Gillette commercial. Gillette, the best a man can get. And it showed a lot of pictures of guys running, hugging each other, playing sports, you know, going like that to their dads, all that kind of man stuff. Shaving, you know. And I was, you know, and I just felt a long way away from the best a man could get. You know? You know, it wasn't the best I've been, you know, and it was a dark place, you know. It was a horrible, dark place, and we talked about stuff like that, and I realised that was the stuff that really got to me, you know, that horrible loneliness. There was a loneliness that I was always embarrassed to talk about. I still feel this loneliness occasionally as well. That's why I come to meetings. That's why I try to talk about it. I feel lonely sometimes. I feel very separate. I feel very apart from sometimes. I've noticed that other alcoholics talk about that too. I really feel that. I really kind of, and the less I involve myself in AA, the more that seems to grow, and the more I, you know, take part in AA or be around alcoholics and talk to alcoholics, the more it seems to diminish. Maybe that's relevant to something. I got sober, and you know, and I went around meetings in London, and I did all the things that, you know, that everybody tells you not to do, but of course you do. You know, you don't have a relationship in your first year, so you know, you get involved with someone immediately, and you know, I didn't drink, and stuff happened, and I didn't drink, and I started to have a good time. It was amazing to me. I noticed after a while I hadn't thought about alcohol for a long time. Now that was interesting to me, because when I was drinking, I was thinking about alcohol a lot. And I would say to people, I can't go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I can't be doing with that, talking about drinking. I don't want to talk about drink all the time and think about drinking all the time. That's all I did. You know, how can I, you know, not go over the top? How can I, you know, control this? How can I, you know, and it would fool me. You know, I'd go out and have 2 drinks some nights and then go home. And other nights, I remember once going out for a drink and coming home days later. Yeah, weird stuff. I just behaved in a way I didn't want to behave. So I went to meetings in London, and I started to have a good time. I had a very good time. And then after 2 years, 2 and a bit years, I wanted to come to America, because I've always wanted to come to America. I like it here. It's nice. I always say to people that got a problem with America, you should really check out the competition before you start, you know, because the competition is pretty ropey, I have to be honest. And I wanted to come here, and so I came here, and when I arrived in Los Angeles, I was appalled at the way AA was run, because of course it wasn't run exactly the way it is in London. In fact, it is. I can't even think of the differences now, but I noticed them a lot when I arrived, and I was very keen to let you know how you were doing it wrong. Didn't make a lot of friends in the first couple of months. I was very frightened, and when I'm frightened, I get very defensive, and when I get very defensive, I tend to be aggressive or outspoken or in some way controversial, which I think is controversial. Other people just think is rude or too loud, or they just walk away. Yeah. But I came here, and things started to go okay, and I got into the meetings and stuff, and then About 5 years, I'd been here for a couple of years, and about 5 years, things were really going well in my life. And anybody who's got any amount of time, I think, knows that when things go really well, that's pretty dangerous. See, my whole life, up until I was 30 years old, I was used to dealing with calamities, the wet beds, the getting out of jails, the getting the booze, the not getting the booze, the saying sorry, the going on a trip, the not going on a trip, all that. I was used to doing all that stuff. I didn't have anywhere to put that energy anymore. Things were going okay. Now, for me, luckily, I think I'd done enough work here to know that I couldn't, things are going okay, I can have a drink. That much I'd sunk in. But I started to feel very strange. At 5 years sober, I started to feel very, very odd. I was having panic attacks and stuff, stuff that I hadn't had since I was drinking. I was very concerned about it, and at that time there seemed to be, or maybe I just noticed it, but there was a lot of talk about medicating, yourself, and getting stuff from doctors like, Prozac or Wellbutrin or whatever these drugs are, and I thought, well, maybe that's the way I need to go, and I went to see a doctor at Cedars-Sinai, a doctor who was sober for an amount of time, and I said, maybe I need something, and he said, yeah, maybe you do. And I went, oh, fuck, no. And I ran away, sorry. And I ran away, and but that's actually what I did say, so I'm being honest. I beg your pardon. But I knew I wanted to change the way I feel. I was desperate. I wanted, and I didn't know what to do, because I didn't want to drink, but I didn't want to feel what I was feeling. And I phoned my sponsor, who by that time lived in Toronto, and he said, oh, right, oh, okay. Well, funnily enough, I have a friend who's in Orange County on business, a Scottish guy that I used to drink with. He's got 6 more months than me, Alan McNichol. And he's Alan McN, in case anybody you know him, which I doubt, Anyway, Alan was on business down in Orange County, and he was he's a computer salesman or something, and so I drove in this crappy car that I had from Burbank to Orange County to see this guy I'd never met before, to talk to him about how panicky I was feeling, because I felt really bad. And on the drive there, I started to think, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. This feels like what it felt like when I first came in. I'd drive miles to talk to somebody I didn't know on the recommendation of somebody who was sober. I felt like I started to feel a bit better, but I was still feeling bad. And to this day, I don't really know what it was. I have some theories that I'll probably get onto or yak about. But I went down and I talked to Alan, and he was very calming. And funnily enough, he was having a bit of a hard time, even although he had 17 or 18 years sober at the time. He was talking about, he was feeling a little ropey, and he was very glad that I came down. And maybe he was just saying that, and maybe it's true. But we talked, and we went out to this crappy Thai restaurant, and we talked in the way that you do when it's, I don't know, when you're really desperate or something, or when you really need to get this, or you really have a desire to stop drinking, really want it. And I talked, and I said to him, I don't want to feel like this anymore. How do I stop like that? How do I stop this kind of thing happening to me? And he said, you have to stick with the winners. And I'd heard that, of course, before. I'd heard that many times in meetings. He said, stick with the winners. And I said, but who are the winners? How do I know who the winners are? And he said, son, we take turns. We take turns at being the winners. You have to look out for them. And it really got to me, that. It really made me reevaluate myself in here. And I don't know why. I think because I thought a winner was just someone with a long time sober. And that is certainly a winner. But maybe not that day, and maybe that's not the way they're feeling. And I think that what I have to do is be open to listening here. I'm the filter for what goes in, but I have to listen. And someone on their first day can say something that can save my life, and I've got to listen to them. I've got to listen. I get very, I sometimes, you may not believe this, but I sometimes get a bit judgmental of other people. And I know. But I sometimes do, and I don't listen. If I don't like the way their haircut is, or the way their accent is, or, you know, the way they speak. I won't listen to what they have to say, and that's robbing myself. That is self-robbery. That's dumb. I don't want to do that anymore. So realizing that the winners take turns were important, but I wasn't kind of out the woods yet. I'm going to tell the Aura story even if you don't like it, or if you've heard it before. I was very desperate. I was asking around friends who are not in the fellowship. I have one friend who's very new age, which is fine, you know. I used to think actually that spirituality was something to do with aromatherapy or candles. I'm serious, man. I thought you were spiritual if you had some kind of like tarot card thing going on, or that if you chanted. I mean, I remember hearing a tape of Ray O'Keefe saying, "You want to be spiritual? Make the coffee. You want to make the coffee in a meeting. You want to do something spiritual? You know, put the chairs away." I like that kind of pragmatic, cranky, old bastard sobriety. It makes me feel comfortable. It's why I'm very friendly with Dawn, actually. It's that kind of cranky, pragmatic sobriety. This is how you do it. This is how you get out of this. But I was panicky, and my friend who's not in the fellowship said, "I have a chiropractor who's a special type of chiropractor who massages your aura." And I don't know, listen, if you get your aura massaged and it works for you, that's great. I have nothing against this. This is just my aura story. I was desperate. I went to see this woman who massages your aura. And I lay down on the bench thing. I was showing her, I lay down on the bench, and I was lying there, and she did some stuff over me, like on my aura, I guess. And then she stopped, and I didn't feel any different. And she said when I was writing the check. I was writing the check for the aura massage. She said, "You know, if you put the chiropractic name, the name of the chiropractic office here, you can claim it on your tax. You can claim it on your insurance, this aura massage." And I said to her, before I even thought, and I apologize for what I'm about to say, I said, "Doesn't that fuck with your aura?" And I knew I was getting better, you know, because I knew I was coming out of whatever I was in, because I was starting to get cranky about other ways of getting sober. I was starting to get back to this. Nah, listen, you get outside help. There are problems other than alcohol. There are things to do. All of these things are appropriate. But you know what? If you think therapy is going to cure your alcoholism, you're going to be a very well-informed dead person. Therapy is great. But for me, alcoholism needs Alcoholics Anonymous, or drink, or alcohol. I either need this or drinking. And there's other stuff that I do. There's other stuff, you know, I'm not averse to it. You know, I'm just saying when I mistake the outside stuff for what's really available in here, I get into a dangerous place. And I think I took my eye off the ball at that point. I started looking for easier, softer ways, I guess. And it didn't work in my experience. And there are times when I don't want to go to meetings. There are times when and I go. I somehow go. There is something in. I've got a fear of. Call me unreasonable. I have a fear of dying alone in a pool of my own urine. Yeah? You know, I'm sorry about that. Maybe I should get some therapy and explain why I have. Maybe it's because I nearly did about 1,000 times. You know? And maybe I needed to have it proved to me over and over and over again that this is an illness. This is and I get a daily reprieve, contingent on my spiritual condition. So here's what you have to do. You know, work on your spiritual condition. You know, I have experienced laughter in Alcoholics Anonymous, which has been transcendental. I really have something to say if you're new, especially if this is early, you know, if you're in early days. I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I'm not stupid. And if drinking was better than this, I'd do it in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat, I would do it. If I could live better drinking alcohol and doing all the stuff I used to do, I'd do it. I'm not dumb. I don't do this because I'm for anybody else. You know, I do this because I have experienced a life beyond my wildest dreams. I have some pretty wild dreams. And this is the great relief. I don't mean the great fact, it's the great relief. And no matter what happens in my life, and some bad stuff has happened and some good stuff has happened, I know I have a place to take anything. Not necessarily from the podium. You know, maybe it's inappropriate to talk about some kind of nighttime incontinence from the podium. But I know there will be people who will understand, who will listen, and who will maybe have something worse, that they can tell me how they lived through that. Or indeed, just compete with me. and you know, oh, you think that's bad? Here's what happened to me. You know, whatever. And blessed release from thinking about myself all the time. All the time. When I was drinking, I lived with a woman, of course, who ultimately left me, and she said, "I'm sorry. You know, I love you, but I can't stay and watch this happen. I love you, and I'm going to leave you." And I was astonished again by my own response, which was, I understand. If I could leave, I would as well. I absolutely wanted to leave the situation and the life that I was in, and I got to. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. And so, you know, I take my eye off the ball sometimes. I screw up sometimes. I am not a perfect member of Alcoholics Anonymous by any scope of anybody's imagination. I am a highly imperfect sponsor. I don't have really a set of rules. I think I'm quite an iconoclastic person. I get very uppity about gurus and people who are, you know, the chief alcoholics. I get cranky about that. I like that. I like the kids that come in with 40 rings in each ear and have tattoos and talk about, I love them. They hold the door open. You know what I mean? They hold the door open. I love the atheists. God bless them. You know? I'm serious, you know? They hold the door open. You know, and we need to have the door open. It's like, I'm not an atheist myself. That's all right. You know? I don't wear a tie when I speak from the podium. Some people think that's really important in AA. I don't. But it takes all sorts. You know, I think that I try and be a little more appropriate than I used to be. But my mind has never been wilder than it is now. My work has never been better, in my opinion. Actually, that's not true. In my opinion, my work has been better. In the opinion of other people, it's never been better. And that's really their business, and it's really not mine. I feel very grateful to have found this place. I'm grateful that it is far from an exclusive club. I personally find myself drawn to meetings which are better run, which start and finish on time, the speakers that start and finish on time. Because I'm kind of cranky and judgmental. Well, don't know if anyone can relate to that. You know, I used to say that I wasn't glad that I was an alcoholic, but I was glad that I knew I was an alcoholic. I used to say that a lot, and I really believed it, and I meant it at the time. I actually now am of the opinion, I'm glad I'm an alcoholic. I'm really glad that all that wildness and energy and madness and craziness and glorious chaos that was given to my imagination came with a package. Everything that got me out of where I used to live. What a place. I don't want to go back there. I never wanted to be there for any length of time. I got out of there because I had some kind of drive. And that, you know, guess what? Alcoholic drive. I'm glad I'm an alcoholic. I'm very glad I'm a sober alcoholic. I was never glad to be an alcoholic when I was drinking. But my people, they're my kind of folks, you know. Sometimes I feel very kind of Pacific groupy, and other times I feel very kind of architects of adversary. You know what I mean? Sometimes I feel that maybe I should, you know, I think this, I don't know if anybody can relate to this. Sometimes I think what I really need to do is get a tattoo. Then somehow that'll take care of whatever that is. I don't know if that's, it goes away though, and I don't have one yet. Listen, I have to leave very quickly after the meeting to go and catch a plane to go and see my sponsor. And go and have a great time, and probably not go to enough meetings and probably eat too much. So I apologize if I seem to be rude after the meeting leaving. I thank you for your indulgence over the past 8.5 years, and in particular in the last half hour. The fact that people as mad as you can be so gracious to one as mad as me is a miracle. And I'm delighted to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you.
Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs, long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.